Welcome to another episode of AI After Hours. Each month, we cut through the AI hype by answering the top questions and calling bullshit on the headlines that we don't think make any sense. Join us for a monthly roundup of AI news and real insights into what's true and what's not in the world of artificial intelligence. Have a question or topic? Email us and join the conversation at support@AI Career Boost. And let's dive into the world of AI together.
I'm your co-host, Yuying Chen-Wynn, technology and product executive with extensive experience in AI, fintech, and edtech. I'm an ex-chief product officer turned AI executive, currently leading everything generative AI at the financial company Peak Six and its family of companies. I specialize in implementing AI meaningfully into your business, and I really love talking about AI, especially with my co-host.
Hi, that's me. I'm your other co-host, Polly Allen. I'm the founder of AI Career Boost, where I spend my time helping product managers and product leaders thrive in the world of AI and transition into AI leadership roles. I've spent my career in both the product and software development sides of the software development world, and I'm an ex-Alexa AI principal product manager, where I successfully launched the very first generative AI answers on Alexa back in 2020. I'm also fortunate to be recognized as a top 100 Women of the Future award winner, and I really love talking about AI. So Yuying, let's jump into it. So we always do start the off with a toast. This is AI After Hours. What are you drinking today?
All right, so I have a Korean shoju that's a plum flavor.
Oh, there we go. Well, yours is officially healthy. I have the very not healthy. It is my holiday cocktail choice, rum and Diet Coke. But it's officially Diet Coke. I don't know if that's healthy. I'm just actually addicted to aspartame at this point, so it's on me. I don't think this is not like a health choice. This is sadly a taste choice, but exactly. It's like my most like festive thing. I have been faking drinking alcohol on this podcast for a couple months now because I was on a health kick. So I'd be like, "Yeah, it's a cocktail." And it wasn't. Now you know the truth. This is a real. And then I'm not feeling that much more healthy. So let's see if alcohol helps. I've tried everything else. It's my that's my thought. What a better time in December to take up drinking? That's
It's an anesthetic, right? It should clear up something.
exactly. I'll report back in January, see how it's working. I know which way I'm biased.
Let's get into our monthly news. Roundup, Polly. So, as always, I wouldn't say a lot of AI news has happened, but a lot has happened in November.
So crazy to keep
And
up.
yeah, so before I start the November news, I'm going to start a little bit differently. I'm going to talk about what I'm refusing to talk about this month. Yes, it was November. There was major, yeah, the election. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm not over it. I can't deal with it. I can't talk about it. I am looking into immigration. That's all I have to say. And number two, its impact on AI. You've got Orange Man over there, and then you got Elon. Lots of speculation. I can't. My mind just shuts down the moment that happens. So we are not talking about the election or impact on AI and what's
Maybe
going to
that's
happen.
best for our mental health. I think like that when I think about having to hear people who really don't know a lot about AI, I'm not talking about Elon, but in general, other people, and like how much of that rhetoric we're gonna have to deal with in the next couple of years now. It's gonna be hard.
Yeah, it's going to be in future episodes. We can't ignore it forever, but
Right.
you know,
For now,
let's make it
leave
a
us in our
no.
little denial bubble.
Yeah, no politics November. That's what I'm going to no politics November.
I
All
like
right.
it.
Okay. The other one I'm not going to talk about. Yeah, I know. Holly's like, what? How is this? What are we doing today? I'm not going to talk about Apple Intelligence. It did come out. I've not heard overwhelming feedback. I've only have heard underwhelming. I think it takes some time for apps to get actually integrated in for it to realize its potential. So I know about it. I read about it. I'm not talking about it. All right. You just have to wait until let's give it a shot and I just not slam it down. Like, what the hell? All right. Okay. Let's talk about the couple of big things. All right. So we know Microsoft, your big players, Microsoft has the OpenAI major stake. Google has its own LLMs. Um, Meta, of course, has its own llama models. And we really haven't seen Amazon with their horse in the race. But as Amazon is clearing through some of the antitrust in Europe about their investment in Anthropic, Amazon is going to be putting even more multi-billion dollars, there's no specific amount, investment into Anthropic. I keep thinking that we will see Amazon do a similar play like Microsoft, maybe getting to 49%, maybe trying to buy, but looking always at that antitrust. I do think this is the most interesting news of the major players.
Yeah.
Thought,
No,
Polly?
totally. Yeah. Amazon, I love for ages they were talking about Titan. They had their own model, and it reminded me of like Mean Girls, where you're like, stop trying to make fetch a thing. It was like, stop trying to make Titan a thing. It's not catching on. No one is down with it. Yes, you could try and build it into AWS, but like basically they've seen the writing on the wall. I think it's a good move for them. It'll be, I think, reInvent is coming up. Like, I don't know, next week. It's coming up soon. It may even like, hopefully this podcast will beat reInvent out. But I imagine that there will be some really big investments, continued investments and stories around that investment, because that's a lot of what they're doing it for too, right? Is just to stay in the race of who's in the news about this stuff, who's actually in the game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they've got no reason to be in the game, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So I think that's the biggest news on the major players. There's a little bit, I call it the catch up among the big players that's happening. So OpenAI came out with Search GPT, right? So that's the real time search, which you've already had with Gemini. So we're waiting on Claude for that one in terms of the overall catch up. But Claude came up with something else that's a catch up. So PDF analysis, right? Um, Claude came up with that through the API, right? Images and tables. So now you've had RAG support from the Chat GPT pieces. I haven't played with Perplexity, but I assume it supports the file upload, etc. But that's another one. So um, those two are feature catch ups, and then the model catch up, Gemini EXP 1114, which is a very lovely model name. This is their newest model
Can
from
we please
Google.
just have a redo on model naming in 2025? All I want for Christmas is someone who can name a model.
Yeah. So this model from Google, uh, in terms of benchmarks, is currently now outperforming GPT 4.0 and possibly the o1 reasoning. So I call this little the model catch up between the big players. Your take, Polly?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know that they'll definitely too be catching up to Sonnet's Claude. Anthropic put out a new version of Claude Sonnet 2.5 and called it Claude Sonnet 2.5.
3.5. 3.5.
No, no. Well, when they put it out with the tool use, it was just 2.5. So they didn't change the number or anything. They changed nothing about the name, but that was when they put out with tool use, right? So we're gonna see like there's all these different dimensions people can take it. So now you're like catching up, but they're also like is this even a good direction to go in, right? So it's crazy to see too. You have the dimensions of catching up on the API side versus catching up on what are the consumer features like the artifacts or like Canvas and OpenAI. These companies are busy, man. Like just trying to like expand in all directions simultaneously and kind of do some land grabs over defining what the UX or the patterns are going to be that people use. So it's always good to look at these things and say like, hey, is this a good idea? But maybe not going all in with like these approaches day one because who knows? They may be something that's like the their first app store that they tried to develop in OpenAI and then they pivoted and went in a completely different direction, right? So it's all about what catches on.
Maybe the smart catch up is the name of the game, but this model catch up I think is going to be a new category of news because I feel like the major players kind of just do this kind of a thing to keep even on all the features and capabilities. Okay, now for something different and fun. So a couple of two directions in research, expanding capabilities that I'm super excited about. The first one, it's actually coming out of Meta unexpectedly for me, unveils AI tools to give robots a human touch. Now, what this means is a couple of things. One, they have vision models that can interpret what the feeling, the touch could be, right? So if you're looking at a surface, etc., so training that. There's another one that actually is touch sensors, which can gather tactile information that feeds in. called Digit 360, I believe. They're actually open sourcing that capability, that sensor, so people can build up on it. So if you think about the AI right now, multimodal, we just mean vision and text and sound, right? Audio, touch. Okay, we're not dealing with taste yet, but if you think about all of our senses, touch is the next big one, especially going into robotics. So this I found super cool in terms of the movement towards touch, especially for robotics.
Oh, completely, completely. And that idea of both like the sensing of the touch and then that whole discussion of large action models and like translating my instructions to actions, maybe that robots perform or that the LLMs perform on your screen for you. Again, it's just like these things keep happening that are like, whoa, that just blows up this whole universe of possibilities that's bigger than like a lot of the disruptions we've seen in the last 10 years just on its own,
My
right?
my dream of a laundry folding bot, it's getting
Finally.
you can see it. I'm like, okay, we got touch. Okay, I have my soft things. Like,
Well,
we're
that's
getting
it.
there.
And I remember seeing like, oh, I don't want like a robot that like I can do the dishes while it makes lists or does my day job for me. I'm like, no, I want a robot to do the dishes.
Yep,
This is
yep.
finally we're getting there.
We gotta get the touch sense in there, so outside
Yeah.
of vision. The
Waterproof,
other
waterproof touch.
one, exactly, waterproof. The other one that I'm super excited about, super boring, very nerdy, very practical, is what's called Table GPT-2. It's a multimodal model that specializes in table content integrated in. Okay, I'm in financial services. It's like everywhere, and we can't deal with it properly. It's so annoying.
And people seem oblivious to the fact that like table data, like you think about what we're doing when we're actually interpreting a table, right? Where you're like, oh, I need the header and the line, and we cross over, and like, and then being able to see the macro view of what's going on in a table overall versus an individual lookup. Like, there is a lot going on in table understanding. And I've met so many folks who are like, I want to build a RAG model. Here's my data. It's in a table. I'm just going to upload it in the back. And you're like, that's they're getting better at understanding tables, but that's you chunk that data up and now it's lost the headers. Like people don't think through what has to happen to interpret a table. So it's very exciting to see that there's actual models that are accomplishing this. I know it's been like lots of research trying to go into this because it's so much of our data is locked up in these kinds of visual representations.
Yeah, exactly. So these two, in terms of new directions for AI and incorporating into multimodal LLM, very exciting. I get my laundry folding bot, and finally, it can read our Excel files. That's my dream. That's my dream for 2025. Okay. All right.
We're making our Christmas wish list as we speak.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I know. I'm writing Dear Santa, but boy, he's gonna get a weird list this year. I'm telling you. Um, okay, so I am based out of LA. So in terms of the entertainment industry, Hollywood, and the content centric, so from the music to the movies, there was a lot of fear, a lot of paranoia, a lot of strikes. Okay, but it looks like things are changing. So, a couple of pieces of news. Number one, Universal Music is partnering to create an ethical music generator. So, this is the guys who owns the music. If they partner to create a model to generate music that is licensable, IP protectable, etc. So, Universal is making that step. The second one, you'll be surprised, SAG. So SAG is the Screen Actors Guild. Yep, they have inked a deal with an AI company to create foundational voice model, digital replica, voice. This one is for voice. It was surprisingly, I was surprised that this was not 11 Labs. It's a different one. It's EthoVox, but it does involve consent for voice actors. 11 Labs is doing, I think, something separate, but not with SAG. And then there are also startup that's doing visual effects. In fact, I believe the latest Tom Hanks, I think on streaming issue, they actually created a big part of that with deepfake. So it's actually a story of where Tom Hanks goes from like age 17 to like 80. There's two of them, and they follows the story, and it's him acting the whole time. They just use deepfake to age him down and age him up. Yeah. So we are actually, I think the shift is happening. I think they realize that, look, you can't stave this off forever. In fact, if you actually think about it, there's new creative possibilities. I think there will also be business impact, but entertainment and AI, your thoughts?
Yeah, really, really big shifts. I mean, it goes to that idea of personalizing viewership even further. Like, what if I'm more likely to watch more of a show or buy endorsed products on a show if the actors are closer to my age on the show? Right. So now all of a sudden, like Netflix could actually be like, oh, you know what? We've taken everyone and just like it's still the same actors you know and love, but we've made them slightly more palatable for you, right? That idea of personalizing, like deeply personalizing this, it may end up that in a few years, none of us are actually watching the same shows really anymore, right? Isn't that crazy? That kind of like audience of one, that's where I think it's going. Now, I think it's going to be so important for actors as part of this and the Screen Actors Guild and everyone to get on board with licensing their voice, licensing their image for this kind of work. And then when we get into, okay, those models generate something completely new and different, these models have always had a hard time with attribution and saying like exactly which actors get paid 0.001% of this what this new model's created, right? I think that's still a technical challenge. So I don't know how they're approaching that from an ethical standpoint, or if they're just saying we're never going to make up new voices, new people that aren't real. We're only going to use existing images and tweak them and deepfake them. It'll be
I think
interesting.
the business models and all of that are still getting worked out, but at least based on this news, they're not completely staving away from tech. This is very, very new, I think, for the entertainment industry in general to actually be moving this fast. They're known to be a little bit behind on the technology adoption, but this is fastest than I've seen for a lot of the other
But
tech.
it's interesting there are new names too, and I think that's such an interesting piece that it's like it won't necessarily be the best tech that wins out. It's built on trust, who they trust to actually do this ethically, to do this in partnership with them. Again, that really human element ends up being super important.
And it'll be interesting to see if the early adopters, the actors that's actually opting in, whether they'll get an edge because they will be a lot more present in the content that gets created, or they will get less of it. This is just it's fascinating. I love to see an actual full on industry kind of starting this pivot.
I guess it feels like they've and everyone is coming to so slowly accept like this is happening.
Yeah.
Do you want to be? Do you want to try and resist it, or do you want to be on part of it as it's moving? I think there are still people out there who are scared of these shifts, who don't want the disruption. But I think in large part, even the biggest sort of the least risk tolerant organizations are saying, okay, we have to figure out a way to embrace this.
Yeah. I gotta imagine that they're looking at Spotify, they're looking at Netflix, going, okay, we can't do this again. We can't fall behind again. Like we need to be a little more proactive this time and take control and not let these new tech companies kind of just flip the whole entire industry. All right. So that even though we absolutely refuse to talk about the largest news of November, I think was still pretty significant and interesting. November is a bit slow, so number one, the holidays and what happened with the elections, but I think this gives us a nice little send off into December, and we can look at all the tech and make up our new Christmas list that Santa's going to be thoroughly confused by. But I'm sure he'll get some AI to help him process that good or naughty list.
That's my new habit, by the way, is like I just brain dump in ChatGPT all the time now, and now I realize I do it more in meetings and stuff too, where I'm like, I'm gonna let you make sense of this. I'm
He's
just
going
gonna
he's
spew
going to
random things.
vomit on the word.
But we'll keep this podcast on, guys. So that was great work with the news, Yu Yang. Thanks for the wrap up for November. Awesome. On to the next segment. It's time for the top question. Across the world of AI. So as a reminder, we've searched far and wide. We look on online reader boards or our own social media feeds for the conversations we hear over coffee, etc. And what are the biggest areas of what are people talking about right now? So one of the areas that cannot be ignored is multi-agent systems. And it's interesting. I remember talking and when I was making predictions for 2024 as like agent systems being a big thing. At the time, I meant multi-agent systems. Agent is taken over as a term that means anything. We talked about this before on this podcast. I was like, what is an agent? Is anything an agent? Is it an AI if it's an agent? But multi-agent systems, why are they seeing such fervor over them right now? And is this something that organizations should be jumping on right away? So let's go through quickly. I thought I'd just do a quick recap of what they are, and then we can talk a little bit too. I'd love to hear more too about how you guys are thinking about this at Peak Six Yuying. So first of all, agents. Just as a recap, when people talk about AI agents, it's come to mean anything, but in more techie academic circles, when we talk about agentic AI, it's more of a spectrum, right? So if something is more agentic, it's more independent, meaning like you can give it a goal instead of necessarily telling it what steps it has to do or how to do it. More agentic tools tend to also have access to outside tools, like being able to access third-party APIs, or even do crazy things like operate your screen for you, operate robots externally, like things in the real world that it's actually affecting outside its own little ecosystem, right? So more independence, more it can handle more complex problems. And then multi-agent systems, to me, it's again a fancy way for here's what engineers do when you hand them a problem. Engineers are going to engineer. So every time you want them to do something more complex, LLMs tend to fall down on more complex tasks, at least if they're repeated over, say, hundreds or thousands of times. What do we do to debug that? Well, we break the problem down into simpler parts that could be more reliable. They also have the advantage of being more testable, more explainable. You have more visibility into what they're doing. And so each piece individually is a lot easier to maintain over the long term, right? So let's say you had like an assistant that's just monitoring your email inbox. Instead of just tailing one LLM prompt, like I want you to monitor my inbox, and if this happens, do this, and here's how to think about putting things in folders, and here's how to reply, you might have one agent that's responsible for sorting your email that comes into different folders. And you might have another agent that's responsible for escalating to you if it doesn't know where to put something in a folder. And another agent that knows your schedule, that it's so that the agent that writes replies to certain kinds of emails can ask it, hey, when's Polly available next for a meeting? And it would actually, do the job of putting those times in the email. So each of them has a job that's very specific and focused. This has been seen as like this great advancement because it's reducing a lot of the problems with the unreliability of LLMs, especially for complex tasks. One of the key things to know about it, though, I think anytime you're dealing with a complex task, when you break it up, the complexity doesn't disappear. It just moves, right? So it just now all the interactions and how this whole system works as a whole is more complex. So end-to-end testing of this thing has become more complex. You can test each individual piece and be sure each one is performing reliably. But we've seen in some of these large-scale experiments, I don't know if you saw this one, Yuying, where someone had actually built a giant, massive multi-agent system using, what's the game with the Lego pieces?
You're talking about
Minecraft.
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 Lego pieces. Come on, catch up.
Exactly.
Minecraft.
Minecraft, where they, I feel so old. They had actually, they'd given like each Minecraft character their own like agentic personality and could act independently, make their own choices. But then like the society as a whole started making all these weird, unanticipated decisions and things that people could not have predicted. Right. So there's these like emergent properties of these systems you have to deal with. So I hear a lot of people are just like acting like multi-agent systems. Oh, this is just finally we've fixed the problem of hallucinations, right? We're gonna just slap multi-agent systems onto what was our RAG system, and we'll never be wrong again. Well, the problem is now you've created what is a very complex system, likely, with new unanticipated ways to fail because the interactions between all of these different agents. So there's lots of really great frameworks for keeping that complexity under control and managing it. But I think for a lot of people, especially if they're blowing this out to hundreds or thousands of agents, it's just so much more complexity than you need for your use case, right? Like, I think it's definitely something that you could look at applying it, bits and pieces of it to get the goodness of it. Like, hey, have one system that generates an answer, have another system in there that actually knows a table of facts and actually does some fact checking on it to check for hallucinations. Like that's a really good first step. And that might be all you need. But I see so many people wanting to like dive deep into multi-agent systems right away and implement like these scary sounding new technologies like Swarm from OpenAI. It's like, oh gosh, the people were paranoid enough about this stuff. Let's call my technology Death Machine 2000 or something. Come on.
Terminator. Yeah, that's what I
Terminator.
got.
Yeah, we're naming it Terminator. Please, please, so you trust it for your banking. Come on.
And
Um,
Skynet. Yeah,
but yeah,
Skynet
but
for
so
financial
anyways,
services. No, just
exactly. Please stop giving it scary names. I get back to the naming, right? But yeah, I'd love to hear how you guys are looking at this in Peak Six in terms of multi-agent systems. Have you guys started experimenting with it? How do you think about it?
yeah. So I'm gonna digress a tiny bit before I get to whenever I see multi-agent system, in my mind is that scene from The Matrix where Agent Smith all of a sudden just splits. I'm just like, is it really necessary? What are you trying to do that needs this kind of
No, we're just like we just broke down the problem
yeah, how
into simpler
my,
problems.
my first one is how much do you really need the complexity, or do you just want to play with the cool new thing and say that you did it? I mean, my part is obviously play with the cool new thing. But no, seriously though, I think the use case that makes the most sense, most practical, and is the one that we're down the path of is the agent that creates the answers, the agent that does verification and iteration, right? So the verifier, I've had that for a while. We're now looping is the next piece and giving it self modification so that once I get the answers that it needs to be fixed, it actually modifies on the other side. That's the
So
loop. I
will
think
it modify the prompt? Like, will it go in and actually adapt the prompt to the first one? Be like,
uh, maybe that's the part we have to figure out. Right now, I'm trying to get it to stop interacting infinitely. This is the one. We're just solving one practical problem at a time. I'm like, they just keep talking. They just keep talking. I can make them stop.
that's also my problem after a few drinks.
Yeah. So I do think the verifier that helps to either give suggestions and then the self iteration is the most practical loop, is the most useful and valuable. And if you can get that one little loop going, that can leaps and bounds for you talking about automation, efficiency, all kinds of like quality improvements. And that alone is already tricky enough. I can't tell you the random things that we're dealing with right now, just with two little things that I know exactly what it's doing.
That's great advice. I love that. Start small, but yeah, start with that exact like the practical use case you're trying to solve for is usually reliability and hallucinations. Start there. Start solving for that. Don't start by solving for I want every process to be an independent agent and have it
Yeah, you
all
start with
doing it.
seven, you're not going to make it out of there. Start with 1.5 and then two because it's kind of automated. If you get 1.5 going, then get it two. Make sure it doesn't keep talking infinitely. It stops at some point.
Exactly. And like any of these things, I think it's when you scale it out is when you start to see the problems and the edge cases. So it's really easy to make a quick little demo of 15 agents that all talk to each other and have it run for half an hour, right? But to like make it's the handling the real world that is going to be trouble. It's like scale up something small first, for
Yeah,
sure.
getting them to talk to each other is not the hard part. Getting them to do the right thing and stop. I like just put them together, and then I'm just like
Yeah.
kill the process. What the hell?
Yeah. When is good enough enough? Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your insight on that. I hope that was super valuable to our listeners too. But I wanted to make sure you guys were up to date on multi-agent system and what's going on there.
That is a really cool big question answered and discussed. All right, and now we go into, as you guys all know by now, if you've listened to the podcast, my favorite segment of all podcasts, all everywhere, not just ours, because it is the infamous BS in AI segment of our podcast, where we break down, cut through, and just poo poo the general BS that surrounds a very hyped up segment. I know, I just use words that my kids would be proud of. All right, as you can tell, yes, I have kids. I have 3 kids. They are teenagers, so maybe they wouldn't think that was cool. Anyways, but starting starting with Bullshit. Okay. All right. So I call it the Game of Thrones of AI. Oh my God. The founding device hardware on Meta is moving over to OpenAI. Oh my God. The last AI safety engineer out of OpenAI is moving over here. Oh no. So the problem I have with this, it is literally framed in the news like Game of Thrones, like, oh, there's intrigue, there is, there is conspiracy, people are being. Okay, look, this is a high demand segment with very few people having very specialized skill set that can do the level of work that all of these people can be. There's not enough of them. Whoever has the better money and the better persuasion in the moment will get someone to move. And they're all being targeted. Okay. I'm sure some of them are unhappy with something at their current job. I think we all are at some point, right? But it's really like being framed like, it's a Game of Thrones and this is happening and there's a and
All this drama and intrigue. What must have happened? And it's like they got sick of the lunch that they provide on Wednesdays, and like they got paid. Yeah, like it's so true. They even just things like it won't just be compensation packages, but how liquid those compensation packages are. So many of these places have paid. Like OpenAI has got huge compensation packages for people, but a lot of it's tied up in stock. And I saw recently there was an announcement that they're partnering with someone so that people can get paid out earlier with their stock compensation. But yeah, it's got to be really, unsettling to be like, oh my gosh, I've got this like $1 million salary, but I can't actually access that information, that stock. And what if something happens? What if I really disagree with what leadership is doing? And that is like for them, it's Game of Thrones money for them.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
big
So
money. Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of people moving around. There's just not enough of them. It's some forget this Game of Thrones piece. All right, so that is my BS for November.
That's your
Pauline.
BS. Yeah. Excellent. Good BS. That's a good one. Um, yeah, I think my big one this month. I've seen a lot of organizations talking like we did it. We adopted AI. We're on the forefront. And because like we're not talking about the foundation model players or that kind of thing, right? They clearly know there's so much more ahead of us. But the ones that are like the Fortune 500 companies that were like really eager to leverage AI, and like all through, 2023, 2024, they're talking about like, okay, we're spinning up Gen AI teams where a lot of them have seen like internal process improvements. You just use ChatGPT and you're like, for sure, someone who, works in operations can go around and improve, 1,000 people's daily lives by 1,000 hours, easy peasy, to know that you'll find those kind of optimizations. But in terms of like external products and things like that, there's so many companies that have kind of been like, yes, we did it. We're on the forefront. And you're like, you launched a chatbot that nobody wanted. Like that's not that's not winning, right? And there's so much more potential for this. Like they're not really keeping tabs on the fact. I mean, it's similar to how I see a lot of like product people thinking, okay, product management's changing. I'm gonna go learn how to do some prompting, and take out some of the boring stuff I do day to day. Awesome! I'm now an AI PM, and I'm like, but we're building completely different products in completely different ways. And it's great that you like, yes, of course you should use ChatGPT or a even better tool to like write a PRD or keep your meeting notes. Like that's a given. Everyone across the board should be using like improving how they do their job. But for product people and software in particular, it's like, no, guys, like there's stuff we haven't been able to conceive of that is entirely possible today. And we should be able to just mock up any idea we can think of within like 15 minutes and get it in front of a user and test it, like a working prototype. Those are going to be the skills to like go and iterate quickly, to be able to test ideas out. And I feel like everyone's like, oh yeah, I took a prompting course and I'm done. Or companies are like, we built a chatbot and we're done. Like, we're so early. We're so early. If only like 10% of what the research is pointing at right now comes to fruition, that we're still massively overhauling not just how we work, but everything we build, all of the jobs of the people we interact with, right? So it's so far from done, I think.
I feel like it's like a shortcut to FOMO. right? Nobody wants to miss out on adopting AI, right? Everybody has this FOMO, individuals, organizations, and the answer is launch a documentation chatbot. Yes, we're done. We got it. We
Yeah,
didn't miss out. We didn't miss out. I'm like,
we didn't miss
okay,
out.
but
Yeah. No, totally. And the flip side of that is like there's organizations that haven't taken that step, right? Because they still feel like they're stuck in the beginning and they don't know where to go. And for all of, the people I work with and a lot of the organizations I work with, having been looking at like, hey, how do we adopt agents? And you're like, hey, rein them in too far back, too far into the tech world. For every one like that, there's 100 companies that are like, I work in the software for funeral homes business and we know we should use AI. That's where we're at, right? Like so many different, these splintered organizations of different sizes. So I feel like it's also like if you haven't started yet, you're not behind. But the opportunities, there's still an opportunity to jump on and get the benefit of a lot of the pathfinding and learning organizations have been doing. But this is a multi-year path you're going to be on. This is not like, yeah, 2025 we'll do AI and then we're done and then we can leave it alone.
I kind of simplify as right now using or adopting AI is so I don't have to read and I don't have to write. That's my simplification. I don't have to read and I don't have to write. Almost every use case, it gives you a lot of efficiencies on reading things that I don't really want to read and writing things I don't really want to write or having to write. But it's so much more than I think. Even for us, where we see the pathways to the efficiencies based on not having to write so much, not having to read so much. But what's the value being created? What's the new thing that you can accomplish that never could exist before? Why I'm so excited by robotics, autonomous driving, because those are brand new scenarios, and I think that exists for every company. We just
That's it. I just think people are not thinking big enough. They're not used to. They're just not thinking. They're so many people when they're building for the first time with like no code prototypes and stuff. They're like, "But this was too easy. I feel like I cheated." It's like, does it work? Then you didn't cheat. Like it's actually very simple to get going and to actually find something that delivers value. I just too many people don't think they can do it or they're not thinking big enough.
You're
Yeah.
exactly right. So we will hopefully see some brand new use cases beyond. I don't want to read and I don't want to write. No.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get beyond just saving a couple minutes or hours here and there to like the really revolutionary stuff. Excellent. Well, that was BS for the month, and we only have time for one last segment, and that is plugs. So, Yuying, do you have anything to plug this month?
I absolutely will, and I will definitely get back to writing my newsletter for the news. I have a newsletter on Substack, yuying.substack.com, where I do analysis like this, sometimes serious, sometimes not so serious, but you can catch up with me on my newsletter from Substack, or you can subscribe to it on LinkedIn.
Oh, fantastic. Awesome. And I also have a newsletter, so it's here on LinkedIn or on my email. So if you look at aicareerboost.com/interested, you can get signed up for my newsletter and you'll get notice of our latest courses and masterclasses that are coming up. We have our Path to AI Product Manager, the 2025 edition is coming up in January. You can sign up now. And we've also just relaunched our 2-week course on Maven, this mastering AI strategy from ideas to MVP. So if you want to get hands-on building a project, that's where you can get going in just 2 weeks and actually understand how to pick great use cases, what you need to know about data, understanding the ecosystem of tools for prototyping. The course is really to take you to a point where you can go and deliver a project on your own. I teach that with Rupert Chattervedi, and we'll be teaching that again in February, I think, of 2020, 2025. I was just supposed to say 2021. I want to go
We're
back.
traveling back in time. I don't think we have that capability yet. Time
Exactly.
travel.
Come on, LLMs. Get with it.
That'll
Awesome.
be next month's news.
Exactly. So as always, we want to shamelessly plug the show. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and go to your favorite podcast pipe. Do let us know if you're enjoying it. Give us 5 stars, etc. Any questions you'd like us to answer, send them to support@aicareerboost.com. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to add them to the show. That's been another episode of AI After Hours, and we're excited to see you all next time.
Next time we will be wrapping up the whole year. See you next time.
Oh, that's right.